The beings who thus enter into communication with us designate themselves, as we have said, by the name of spirits or genii, and have belonged, in many cases at least, to men who have lived upon the earth. They say that they constitute the spiritual world, as we, during our earthly life, constitute the corporeal world. We will now briefly sum up the most important points of the doctrine which they have transmitted to us, in order to reply more easily to the objections of the incredulous. God is eternal, immutable, immaterial, unique, all-powerful, sovereignty, just, and good. He has created the universe, which comprehends all beings, animate and inanimate, material and immaterial. The material beings constitute the visible or corporeal world, and the immaterial beings constitute the invisible or spiritual world, that is to say, the spirit world, or world of spirits. The spirit world is the normal, primitive, eternal world, pre-existent to and surviving everything else. The corporeal world is only secondary. It might cease to exist or never have existed without changing the essentiality of the spiritual world. Spirits temporarily assume a perishable material envelope, the destruction of which by death restores them to liberty. Among the different species of corporeal beings, God has chosen the human species for the incarnation of spirits arrived at a certain degree of development. It is this which gives it a moral and intellectual superiority to all the others. The soul is an incarnated spirit whose body is only its envelope. There are in man three things: the body or material being, analogous to the animals, and animated by the same vital principle. Number 2, the soul, or immaterial being, a spirit incarnated in the body. Number 3, the link, which unites the soul and the body, a principle intermediary between matter and spirit. Man has thus two natures. By his body he participates in the nature of the animals, of which he has the instincts. By his soul he participates in the nature of spirits. The link, or perispirit, I'm going to be using this word a lot. I've never heard of this before. Perispirit. Perispirit? Well, I'm going to call it perispirit. The link, or perispirit, which unites the body and the spirit, is a sort of semi-material envelope. Death is the destruction of the material body, which is the grossest of man's two envelopes. But the spirit preserves his other envelope, the perispirit, which constitutes for him an ethereal body, invisible to us in its normal state, but which he can render occasionally visible and even tangible, as is the case in apparitions. A spirit, therefore, is not an abstract, undefined being, only to be conceived of by our thought. It is a real, circumscribed being, which in certain cases is appreciable by the senses of sight, hearing, and touch. Spirits belong to different classes and are not equal to one another either in power, in intelligence, in knowledge, or in morality. Those of the highest order are distinguished from those below them by their superior purity and knowledge, their nearness to God, and their love of goodness. They are angels or pure spirits. The other classes are more and more distant from this perfection. Those of the lower ranks are inclined to most of our passions, hatred, envy, jealousy, pride, etc. They take pleasure in evil. Among them are some who are neither very good nor very bad, but are teasing and troublesome rather than malicious, and are often mischievous and unreasonable, and may be classed as giddy and foolish spirits. Spirits do not belong perpetually to the same order. All are destined to attain perfection by passing through the different degrees of the spirit hierarchy. This amelioration is effected by incarnation, which is imposed on some of them as an expiation and on others as a mission. Material life is a trial, which they have to undergo many times until they have attained to absolute perfection. It is a sort of filter or alembic form which they issue more or less purified after each new incarnation. On quitting the body, the soul re-enters the world of spirits from which it came, and from which it will enter upon a new material existence after a longer or shorter lapse of time, during which its state is that of an errant or wandering spirit. Spirits having to pass through many incarnations, it follows that we have all had many existences, and that we shall have others, more or less perfect, either upon this earth or in other worlds. The incarnation of spirits always takes place in the human race. It would be an error to suppose that the soul or spirit could be incarnated in the body of an animal. A spirit's successive corporal existences are always progressive and never retrograde, but the rapidity of our progress depends on the efforts we make to arrive at perfection. The qualities of the soul are those of the spirit incarnated in us. Thus, a good man is the incarnation of a good spirit, and a bad man is that of an unpurified spirit. The soul possessed by our own individuality before its incarnation, it preserves that individuality after its separation from the body. On its re-entrance into the spirit world, the soul again finds there are all those whom it has known upon the earth, and all its former existences eventually come back to its memory, with the remembrance of all the good and of all the evil which it has done in them. The incarnated spirit is under the influence of matter. The man who surmounts this influence through the elevation and purification of his soul raises himself nearer to the superior spirits, among whom he will one day be classed. He who allows himself to be ruled by bad passions and places all his delight in the satisfaction of his gross animal appetites brings himself nearer to the impure spirits by giving preponderance to his animal nature. Incarnated spirits inhabit the different globes of the universe. Spirits who are not incarnated, who are errant, do not occupy any fixed and circumscribed region. They are everywhere, in space and around us, seeing us and mixing with us incessantly. They constitute an invisible population, constantly moving and busy about us on every side. Okay, now I'm going to stop right here and give you an example of what happened to me. When first I became interested in spiritual things, I was like in my 40s. And before that, my only concern in life was survival, making it in this world. I didn't think I had time to look into this sort of thing. But when I came discouraged by the church, I started looking into spiritualism. And my intentions weren't, at that time, so pure, and I attracted to me spirits of this lower, errant, what he's talked about here, that are given to want to be mischievous. And not only mischievous, mean, outright mean, because I attracted to myself some spirits that were making of my life a living hell. And I won't go into all that they said and did, but it was as though they were in my very thoughts, that they knew everything I thought. And they were always interrupting me and saying things and having me believe in them in one minute and the next minute hating them and wishing them to go away and never come back. And thus, at this part of my life, I had some experiences being in lockup facilities, not for very long. I think the longest time I was in one was like a couple of weeks. But they can make your life very miserable. And then one day, and this is where I learned. First, let me say, I went to the church and said, please see if you can exorcise these spirits to get out of me. And they did their mumbo-jumbo on me. Didn't work. After they were done, the spirits kept talking. They said, we didn't go anywhere. And so I was left with the conclusion that if anything was going to be done, I'd be the one who would have to do it. So I started reading other books, spiritual books, and I remember reading a Joel Goldsmith book. It was, I think the name of it was Practicing the Presence. But anyway, in this book, I discovered a fact I didn't know. That everything that is, visible or invisible, is part of God. Everything is God. There is not God and some other power. There's only one power, and that is God. And as I was reading it, I realized that we need to learn to love every part of God, even the unenlightened portions of God that are these spirits. And I realized that I more or less hated those spirits. And I changed my mind. I decided I don't hate them. If they're part of God, I need to love them. And since they were right there in my mind, no one ever thought a thought, I said to them one day, I love you, and I know you know it because you know my thoughts. And this kind of like changed them completely. And I felt like I was empowered over them because I loved them. Because now that I love them and they knew that I did, I issued some certain demands of them. And I said, you've bothered me so much and you've made me to feel really bad, like I hate you or I don't trust you. But I'm saying now that you don't know it, but you are a part of God. And as such, I choose to love you. And as for you talking to me and driving me crazy, you must stop that. I dealt with them like they were like naughty children or something. I said, you're not permitted to talk to me anymore. But I want to give you a privilege of like looking over my shoulder at the things I'm reading. And you can't talk to me, but you can see what I see and read what I read and learn and grow and evolve. Because that's what I plan on doing. I'm going to read many, many spiritual books. And I'm going to find some truths that will set me free to, well, that will set me free to feel like I'm an empowered person. And you know, they left me alone after that. They left me alone. I told them, do not talk to me unless talked to by me. And it was about a year after that. And I was doing much, much better. And one day I decided to see if they were still around. And so I spoke to them. I said, are you there? And have you been helped by listening to the things I've been reading? And they answered me in my mind, not in physical, not in a sense of I heard them speak audibly. But they answered me, yes, that they were still here. And that they were very, very, very grateful and thankful that I had given them the opportunity to learn. And I felt like, wow, I've done something that helped beings in another kind of dimension than the normal one that each individual perceives being in this world. There are these spirits all around us, and they're not for us to hate them, but it's not for us also to let them run roughshod over us. So I think all the power that I acquired on that occasion was in the fact that I chose to forgive and to invite them to learn. I didn't just like cast them into the pits of hell. All the things that people who are trying to get evil spirits out of you might say, you go here, you go there, and they show that they can be so ugly in their commands to these beings that are a part of God. And I don't think it's right. And I was successful, and I hope others who, if they have this kind of situation occurring to someone they know or to themselves, that they take my advice right here, right now. Love all that is. Love your enemy, even if your enemy has personally killed some member of your family. Still, love them. Because they're a soul and they're part of God. And they have much to learn. And if we are given to just become pessimist or critical or opinionated that, well, no, I have a righteous anger and hatred of them, there's no such thing as righteous anger. There's nothing righteous about being angry. Now you can be concerned, but don't take it to the point where you're so angry that you're hateful, because that is a very disempowering place to be. When you're all about love and forgiveness and understanding, you're not coming from a powerless place, but a very powerful one, because now you're aligned with the way God is. Because God loves all that He made. And we should do the same. If we want to be more and more like God, we should love all that is, whether it's something that we like or not. And if you don't like it, instead of hating it, you can, as far as possible, stay away from that makes you feel so bad. Don't think about it that much. But don't concentrate on living in resentment or anger. Because here's another little bit of advice. If you live with resentment, it will make you sick. It will make physical problems for your body. Resentment is a very bad place to come from. It's without power. It's awful. And I wouldn't suggest that anyone try to live in a state of constantly being resentful over something, or constantly being angry. Emotional feelings that we have reproduce their kind for us, and we just get to experience it more and more and more until we just get tired of it and we say, I've got to quit this. I've got to curtail my emotions and start imagining good, instead of always suspecting that everybody about me is up to something no good. There are people like that in this world, and they make it very, very difficult for the rest of us. But you gotta love them. You gotta love them. Love them into the light. Even if they're a disembodied spirit bothering you, a ghost or something, there are people who can actually rid a haunted place from being haunted by ghosts, that help those beings that are invisible to go and move on toward the light, because they are earthbound. They're stuck here because of some emotion that they weren't able to get control over in their lifetime. So, just as I helped those spirits that were bothering me, any one of us can, when we feel like we're being impinged upon by something invisible that's talking to us, we can love it into the light. We can refuse to hate anything. And it's a big reward for doing that. It's a hard thing to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is the only answer. And it brings us closer to God, and it will have its own rewards. And I just wanted to add that. That was my experience, and at one time I was kind of crazy, I do say that the facilities where they treat you for that sort of thing I went through, all they believe in is just giving you shots and giving you drugs. But they don't understand what's really going on and how to help you. But love is the answer. It just seems to be the answer for everything. Love. Love is coupled with wisdom, though. You don't want to become a doormat for someone that they step all over you, because first of all, you got to love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, you can't give love to anyone else, because you don't have it to give. You haven't given it first to yourself. So therefore, you don't have it to give to anyone else. So first of all, and this is not selfish, first of all, love yourself. Forgive yourself real quick when you've done something wrong. Be the quickest one to forgive yourself of anything you've done wrong. And things will change. When our perception changes, things around us, people around us, also change, because of the simple fact that we have changed our perception of them. Anyway, I'll end this video because I'm getting up there, and I'll begin a new one at the place where I left off. This is the Dove Lady, over and out for now.